Hi, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to SBAM Small Business Briefing. I'm Sarah Miller, Vice President of Operations, and today I am joined by my frequent co-host, Kelly Saunders. Kelly, welcome back to the show.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Kelly Saunders, Vice President of Policy and Engagement here at SBAM. As always, good to be with you in place of Brian. Sarah, I will kick it back to you to welcome a new member of ours.
We do have a new member to welcome today, a new elite member. It's Audir Interpersonal Intelligence. So welcome to owner Amina Hedayat Khalil and her team. All right, so Kelly, we do have a special guest joining us, but before we invite him into the conversation, let's do a little Election Watch 2026 update.
Yes, I know Brian loves doing these, but we're going to start our show today with an election 2026 update. There was quite a bit of action last week. There was another candidate that got into the race. Former Speaker of the House Tom Leonard announced that he will be running for governor on the Republican side of the ticket. He is from the DeWitt area and he is running on what he says are lower taxes, including improving the third grade reading scores as a part of his announcement. And so, if people need a reminder, he left the legislature at the end of 2018, but he has kept deep Republican ties within the base of the Republican Party. He's a current lawyer and lobbyist at Plunkett Cooney in the Lansing area. And this also expands the GOP field. We've talked about in former weeks that that field now includes, like we said, Tom Leonard, the former Attorney General Mike Cox of Livonia, U.S. Representative John James of Shelby Township, and then State Senate Minority Leader Eric Nesbitt of the Southwest Michigan region. And so as the field continues to increase, we've got quite a hot list here of people running for governor. Whoever comes out of the Republican primary will face off, obviously, against a Democratic nominee, and then maybe the current mayor of the city of Detroit, Mike Duggan, who is running as an independent, as a reminder. On the Democratic side of the ticket, those that have announced are Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson of Detroit, Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist of Detroit, and the Genesee County Sheriff Chris Swanson of Fenton. A reminder that Governor Whitmer cannot run for office again because she is term limited and was reelected in 2018. So, a little bit of more background on Tom Leonard. Before he was elected to the State House in 2012, he worked as an assistant state attorney general and as a prosecutor in Genesee County, and he served in Michigan State as Michigan State's House Speaker in the top position in that chamber in 2017 and 2018. Why this is notable is that actually one of his strategist, worked for President Trump when he was in office the first time. And really, the jockeying for on the Republican side is who will President Trump endorse. It doesn't mean that the strategist for Tom Leonard means that he gets the endorsement, but it is one that does pique people's interest. In this specific topic, though, who else might join into the race? We go over this often. Tudor Dixon, who ran against Governor Whitmer the last race, is trying to decide whether she wants to run for governor or U.S. Senate and said that announcement is coming soon. And then also there are a few other notable businessmen in the Southeast Michigan region. Kevin Rinke, who ran in a Republican primary, and also Perry Johnson, who did not make the ballot last time due to some petition issues. So, as the race continues, we will continue to keep you updated on who is getting in the race for governor. It seems like there will not be a lack of options when it comes to any side of the ticket, whether it's right, left, or middle. So we will keep you updated. But Sarah, I will pitch it back to you. As you said, we have a special guest with us today to go over something not politically related, which some people will find as a breath of fresh air. So, Sarah, back to you.
Thanks, Kelly. I have to say, when we started doing Election Watch 2026, I think at the tail end of 2024, I did think to myself, how can we possibly have enough to talk about leading up, every show until the election? And every week I am proven wrong. So thanks for that update there. But yes, we do have a special guest joining us today from Consumers Energy. Longtime viewers of the show will know that SBAM has a strategic partnership with both Consumers Energy and DTE Energy to provide our members with energy efficiency services and tools. And so today we actually have Eric Wojciechowski joining us. He is the Director of Storm and Emergency Response. So anyone who's had to deal with issues due to storm damage or outages really knows how critical Eric's role is at the utility. And so, Eric, we've invited you here today to talk more about the reliability roadmap. And we have talked about this with some of our members before, and we know how important it is to you at Consumers Energy. But can you tell us a little bit about what the reliability roadmap means for customers and our small businesses in the face of what feels like more and more severe weather happening all the time?
Sure. Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate you having me on the show. Consumers Energy unveiled what we would call our reliability roadmap about 2 years ago. So let's talk a little bit about what that means. Michigan is facing more severe weather. Just this year, our grid has been impacted by, I'm sorry, not our grid, our state has been impacted by 29 tornadoes. That's the fifth most tornadoes in any given year since 1950, and we're not even halfway through yet. So we aspire to build a smarter and stronger grid, with the goal being that we reduce power outages in all weather conditions, and that if you do lose power, we get the lights on in less than 24 hours for all of our customers.
Restoring power in 24 hours or less is certainly a notable goal. And as somebody who does live in the consumer's territory, I very much appreciate it. But talk to us about how that worked last year. Were you able to meet your goals?
Yes and no. So we want 100% of customers to be back on in less than 24 hours. The roadmap is a long-term commitment, but as you mentioned, we are making progress today. So last year, about 93% of our customers got power back on in less than 24 hours. Also, the length of time the average outage went without power during normal weather also dropped by more than 20 minutes on average. So we're continuing to make those investments and upgrades to our system to better serve the roughly 2 million businesses and homes that count on us. And just to put a little bit of data to that, we did improve last year by roughly 6% over 2023. So we're at about 87% in 2023. That's about 150,000 homes and businesses that were able to get their lights back on in less than 24 hours.
Obviously, having power is crucial to people running their businesses. So that is so appreciative to know that you have this kind of your proactive work out there. So tell us what Consumers Energy does on blue sky days to be more proactive in meeting your goals.
Yeah, great question. A great example of that would be what we're doing with our tree trimming or forestry line clearing. Clearing trees away from our power lines is critical to our reliability roadmap and our long-term plan. That addresses the number one cause of outages. Trees are our number one cause of outages. We're actually proposing a 5-year timetable, a 5-year cycle time to clear all of our systems low voltage distribution lines. And those are the lines that serve our homes and smaller businesses directly. We've been previously, over the last 5 years, been working on a 7-year cycle or time frame. And so this year, as part of that, we plan to clear over 8,000 miles of those low voltage power lines. And we expect a 30% reduction in tree related outages by 2030. So a lot of good work going on there. That's probably my favorite example as the number one cause of outages.
No, I think it does kind of help people understand, what truly is behind the root of some of these issues. So, Eric, tell us, what can we do as residential or business customers to kind of aid you in your work to become more reliable?
Well, part of why I wanted to come on today is to help build awareness with your listeners with the reliability roadmap. I also wanted to share in my job as the director of storm and emergency response. We're already seeing those results right now from the work that we've already done in the last 2 years. We know we can continue to do better to better serve our customers. So besides forestry, we are installing stronger poles and leveraging newer technology, burying some of those power lines underground so it's away from those trees, and then stepping up our response when storms hit Michigan. So on those blue sky days when there aren't storms, you'll see our crews working outside to create a more resilient grid. So Please be safe if you're driving near them. We take traffic control and safety very seriously here at Consumers Energy.
All
Thanks.
right, well, thanks, Eric. We appreciate you coming on here and shedding a little bit of light into what you all are working on at Consumers Energy. And if you are watching this and you have yet to do one of our energy efficiency assessments, we do them for free. We partner with all of the utilities here in Michigan. So wherever you're located, we can help you out. You can visit sbam.org/energy for more details. So Eric, thanks again for joining us today.
Thanks, Sarah.
All right, so Kelly, we're going to move on now to some policy news. A couple of weeks ago, you and our colleague Jacob Manning were talking about some of the budget items that we are engaged in. So can you give us an update on the budget process?
Yes. So just as kind of a baseline, the budget, it does say in statute that it should be in place by July 1st. And so that was put into place during the Snyder administration, and it really has been met ever since Governor Whitmer took over, with other legislatures that have come after the Snyder administration. And it's safe to say the budget process has moved a little bit slower. We know that divided government, while it's good because it does allow for a thoughtful dialogue, this legislature has been complicated. So we know that when Speaker Hall took the reins in the House, there was a little bit of a frosty beginning between him and the Senate Majority Leader due to bills that were not essentially delivered to the governor because of some legal challenges that they thought could be in place. And so Senate Majority Leader ended up suing the Speaker. It's been a little bit of a rough go in order to get things moving. And so not last week, but the week before, the House did pass out budgets for education, which we know it's really important for our education system to have an idea of what money they're going to get heading into the new school year so that they can plan accordingly. So the speaker had made a very public statement that that's what he wanted to get done specifically, and maybe the rest of the budget could wait a little bit in order to, what he's saying, get it right and allow for more of a chance to see how taxpayer dollars were being spent. The Senate has been a little bit more urgent about getting things through, and so they did pass their own budgets through, and now they don't essentially line up with what the House wants to do. So last week, the Speaker did make a public statement that he is committed to getting the budget done July 1st for specifically the education side of the House. And we do know that last week that the Speaker and the Senate Majority Leader and their teams did meet to try and start to move things forward. So we're encouraged to see that those discussions are happening, given kind of this frostiness between the two of them, because it really is important for our state to get those things moving so that the education system can move forward and the rest of the departments can start to implement and plan accordingly. It is going to be very hard pressed for the entire budget to get done before July 1. Newsflash, everybody, July 1st is next week. And so it's hard to believe that summer is flying by. And we know that these discussions are complicated, and we know that the budget is huge. And so the fact that education is being focused on, we have a roads deal potentially out there being discussed alongside trying to get all the other pieces of the budgets in place, it's really going to take a monumental lift. So we're not any closer necessarily to have the budget complete. I think that they will work diligently to get the education pieces in place if they can, in order for schools to have what they need. But I think the rest of the process is going to be a little bit longer than anticipated. Reminder that usually the legislature does take a break in the summer. We'll see if that happens. They might work through the summer in order to get these other pieces in place, which will make things complicated. You know, our legislature is used to taking time off in the summer. But also there's the piece of, where's the governor in all this? She presented her budget, obviously, earlier in the year and had her own ideas on things. We know once that she presents that, then the legislature has to do their work. The governor's been traveling a lot. I'm sure many people saw last week she was in Australia. She's traveled to Spain this year. She's been kind of all over the world on a mission to bring jobs back or more investment to Michigan. But this is really going to take a concerted effort from all three leaders in order to get this budget passed. And so, will the governor come back and kind of be that negotiator between the Senate and the House? Because we really know that's what it's going to take. And so, it's going to be really interesting to watch how this all plays out in Lansing in the next couple weeks, specifically on the education piece, but also on the rest of the budget come this summer. Reminder that, in order to avert a government shutdown, has to be done by September 30th. So we're really marching towards kind of a new time where we're used to getting budgets done by July 1, and I just don't see that happening in totality across the board. So we will continue to keep you updated. We really hope the three of them can come together in order to find consensus.
All right, well, thanks for that update, Kelly. I know you will, as you said, keep us updated along the way. All right, let's talk about kind of an exciting announcement about the Gordie Howe Bridge. What can you tell us?
Yes, we have had a long-standing policy that we have supported the infrastructure investment in the Gordie Howe Bridge as kind of that parallel bridge to the Ambassador. We know that traffic has been for decades really tough to get across that bridge. And so having these two bridges together will not only help our economy, but it will ease that traffic flow of people who go from Michigan specifically to Canada and vice versa. And so there was a very exciting announcement last week that the cranes are being removed, which means I think Brian had gone over before. The roadway had been connected, and so the need for those cranes is no more. Just they put out some really great stats. The bridge spans the Detroit River, obviously connecting southwest Detroit to northwest Windsor, Ohio. And so when the $5.7 billion project is complete, the Gordie Howe International Bridge will be the largest Canadian and U.S. land port along the border. It also will be among the top 10 longest bridges in North America. And so we're thrilled to see this step taking place. They also let the public know that work is now centered on installation of electrical, drainage, and the suspension systems. And crews are also going to install the barriers, the signage, the lighting, and the pavement markings, and a multi-use path. And so buildings and structures at ports of the entries are both complete, which is great. The bridge deck itself took 6 years to build, and it was fully connected in August of this past year. When it's completely finished, an estimated 6,000 people are expected to commute to Detroit from Ontario each day with the bridge. And if you go to Google Maps, it is now visible that you can see the Gordie Howe International Bridge, and signage for I-75 has been resurrected. So we are that much closer to being able to use the Gordie Howe Bridge from Detroit to Canada and Canada to Detroit. And that's a really exciting time to see a project that we have supported through and through come to fruition. And we know it's just going to be great for our economy and to our friends to the north. So very exciting. Hopefully some of you will be able to use the Gordie Howe Bridge in just a few short months.
Absolutely. Thanks for that update. All right, another policy item that we have been watching closely is related to housing. And there was a new study report that was released out of West Michigan this past week. So can you tell us what it said?
We've also been involved in housing for quite a few years. We know that Michigan has had a shortage across the state, whether it be in a growing population in West Michigan, or just the need for not only new build but rehabbing maybe homes that are quite old and are in perfectly good shape but need some remediation, whether it's lead or what have you. And so, Housing Next is a pretty reputable organization in West Michigan. They had released a report for 2025 to 2030 that shows an overall housing gap narrowing in Kent County. And so this is a specific area of the state that people have been watching because of the mass migration kind of to that Kent, Ottawa region. The fact that it's slowing means that the housing is actually being built or there's a lack of demand for it. That could be good and bad. It could be that it's just leveling out and the people that are moving there are finding what they need. It also could mean that we have a slow growth in population, obviously, in that part of the state. Now, this is just specific to West Michigan. Haven't seen what it means for Southeast or even Northern Michigan, so I'm just going to speak to the specific region. But Kent County did add 6,000 new housing units from 2022 to 2024. So they had increased, obviously, the stock for people looking for it. And that's anticipated to outpace the state in population and household growth. Kent County is expected to continue to grow. And the report is predicting another 6,371 new households by 2030, which is 30% in the city of Grand Rapids and 70% in the remainder of the county. So Kent County is facing a rental housing gap, though, of 11,000 units, and state housing gap is 22,000 overall by 2030, which is a total of 33,914 homes. So it's interesting to just kind of watch these metrics as our different regions begin to release these kinds of reports so that we can really see where housing does need to continue to be a focus. We know that MSHDA has been very vigilant and diligent about making funds available to the respective communities, whether that is new builds, whether that's remediation. We know that some land also has housing on it that is completely needs to be demolished because it's not going to be in a shape for people to live. And so it's going community by community and finding the opportunities in order to capitalize on all these various resources we have. And really, communities are ready to tackle those challenges. And we really can't forget our rural communities in this conversation. We know that some people are really looking for a quieter life. So whether that's northern Michigan, whether it's some of our, central or even some of our, like border counties, we have a lot of beautiful rural communities that are really looking in order to remediate that housing or offer the ability for a new build and also the type of housing they're looking for. We know that, if anything, Michiganders have an idea of what they want and they're going to go get it. That's one of our it's kind of like politics in that way too. We don't like being told what to do. We really just want the options in order to be able to capitalize on different things. And so, just an interesting report to share out of West Michigan, one of our growing pieces of population here in Michigan. And we'll continue to bring opportunities on what's happening in the housing space. Make sure that you check our policy page. We continue to work with the legislature on easing the barriers in order to build and remediate for housing shortages we're finding in our communities.
All right, thanks, Kelly. We have one kind of final story to talk about today, and that is some news from the Unemployment Insurance Agency. This was actually released last Friday. We shared it in our newsletter today with members, and I can drop the link in to the chat, Kelly, while you're talking. But it talks about the expansion of weeks and benefit amounts and what that kind of means for small businesses and our members. So I'm going to let you go ahead and give an overview.
Yeah, obviously we're really disappointed, and all of you stepped up to the plate in order to let the legislature know that you were not supportive of the expansion of weeks or benefits last year. Unfortunately, we did not win that battle, and legislation was passed and signed into law. That does mean that there will be changes with the UIA system when it comes to payment that you really all need to make sure that you're well versed in. And so, as Sarah said, make sure you read the newsletter today. You should have also received this information from the UIA itself through its employer newsletter. If you're not signed up for that, you should be automatically. Make sure you're receiving that specifically over the next year, because what I'm going to tell you today as far as payment goes is important, but also there's going to be changes in the benefit amounts as we go on the next 2 years specifically, but there will be a new system implemented for the UIA as well for both employers and claimants in the next year that is going to require you to move away from MyWAM and into what's called MyUI. So we're going to offer every opportunity we can to make sure that you're well informed, but you really need to make sure that you are watching your MyWAM account for announcements and changes and things so that you're not falling behind. And I know it can be a frustrating system. We're here to help if you need it. So make sure that you contact us, but we just really want to make sure that we're providing you with the most up-to-date information. So, as of April, when the new requirements for weeks and benefits went into place, there's some changes. So, reimbursing employers, about 2.2% of all Michigan employers do not pay quarterly unemployment insurance taxes. Instead, they reimburse the UIA dollar for benefit charges paid to former employees. So starting this year, reimbursing employers who pay a maximum increase of $84 each week, an employee receives the maximum weekly unemployment benefit after losing their job. That's due to changes in that legislation that I talked about. So that's for April 2. The law increases the weekly maximum benefit amount from 362 to 446 and expands the maximum weeks of eligibility to 26 weeks from 20. So some reimbursing employers will be required to submit payment to UIA beginning in the second quarter of 2025, depending the employer's billing cycle. So quarterly for nonprofit entities and state agencies, and then annually for local government and Indian tribes and tribal units. So reimbursing employers should also note that the maximum weekly benefit amount will increase by $84 each of the next 2 years on January 1, 2026 and January 1 of 2027. And then starting on January 1 of 2028 and in subsequent years, any change in benefit amounts will be tied to the Consumer Price Index by the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. So please make sure that you are up to date on all these things. It should be in your MyWham account. Now, we've talked about what MyWham is turning into MyUI, which we were a little disappointed that the contract was behind. That was announced a couple weeks ago in the legislature. They will be doing trainings as that is designed to go into place in December at the end of the year. So there will be trainings that UIA does. We do, encourage you to take those to make sure that you're updated, whether it's you or your HR director. We are going to make a concerted effort with the department to see if we can offer some more intensive trainings to our members specifically, and we'll keep you updated on that. But please make sure that you're updated on the UIA changes. Really important for your operations. And if you're confused at all on anything, please make sure you contact Jacob or I here at SBAM, and we'll do our very best to assist you. So just wanted to bring that to light. Make sure you read about it in the newsletter today.
All right, thanks, Kelly. And I did share the link here too for a quick access. All right, that is pretty much what we have for you today. I do want to point out that we have 2 webinars this week. Tomorrow, we have a webinar on building a thriving workforce. And on Wednesday, Brian and Scout Sparks are back with another how to comply with the Earned Sick Time Act webinar. So if you have not figured out how to comply with ESTA, or if you don't have to implement it until this fall, you might want to check that out. So you can register for both on our website, sbam.org/events. Have a great week, and we will see you back here next Monday. Thanks for joining me, Kelly.
Always happy to. Have a great week.